Alright guys, so I'm gonna do a quick update on the build that we used since we came back to the Guild Wars 2. The changes that we've made a little bit as we've progressed through the storyline and made alterations, and the new versions for it. It's not the ultimate build. We haven't pieced together the ultimate build again, but I do think this is a very versatile, flexible build. It's able to handle quite a few different situations, use a bunch of different armors and all of that. And ideally, I would recommend just using a sword with it, but you could still use body blows if you want to use a hammer or knockback effects. You could still use bleeding runes or whatever if you wanted to apply bleeding and use like a rifle, for instance. But I would say sword, shield, warrior, and then you can have a rifle or whatever else that you want for a secondary weapon. Um, Doing so, I would still say you either put might generation runes or bleeding on crit so that your secondary weapon can still apply bleeding. Basically, it just turned it into kind of a bleed build. I'm a little out of it though because I just worked 60 hours in 3 days and just got home, so. And then we'll be finishing the rest of the story after this. And anyone that's been watching the stream, my old guild leader from Guild Wars 1 is coming back to the game potentially pretty soon. And me and him are discussing lore and stuff about a video game that I kind of want to build. And I've got a whole bunch of the stuff already planned out and maybe write a book about it to see if I can like generate some money to help develop things. But he hasn't did the End of Dragons expansion yet. So if he plays, we'll probably just skip ahead and do the End of Dragons expansion. So here is basically what we are doing now. So this build is all about flexibility. It is the same Celestial Ruins and stuff that we had from before. Quickness on crit on the sword, and we have quickness on disable on the shield. And then we have the bow doing 20% burning duration and then 10% condition duration. This is so that we can get basically a really high burning duration. So you can see right here on the sword, we're still getting 99.93% bleeding duration. And if we swap over to here, we're getting 97% burning duration. Okay? And I think this might be the most flexible build that I've made in the game so far. So, the setup that we have right now is what you would use basically if you're going to be doing DPS for your team. So you're not really worried about your personal well-being. Now, if you're using this as a solo player, you basically have to think of yourself as a ranged kind of ranger type class, and then you're going to have the option of engaging with melee, but you really only need your bow for the most part to make it work, and then jump in, do your damage off, but ideally you want somebody to help you heal when you're doing this. So what we're running is Signet of Rage. So when you activate Signet of Rage, we're doing the same combination that we used before. So Signet of Rage and Lesser Signet of Might. As long as you're attacking people, these two together can give you all of the Fury bonuses that you need. Okay? So when you use any of these signets for the most part, but when you use this ability here that reduces your signet recharge, it gives you unblockable, it gives you might, and it gives you ferocity stacks. So you get 100 ferocity for each stack, you get 5 stacks. So as long as you're fighting like normal enemies or anyone that goes under 50% health, if you're using this and Signet of Rage together, That's all you need to get the 500 additional ferocity. So that's literally all you have to have on your build. Bonus ferocity, that's pretty much it. In here, we have critical strikes grant bonus adrenaline and gang stacking condition damage effect, which is going to empower our bow and empower our sword. We get increased bleeding duration, and we get bleeding on crit, which means that every auto attack from our sword can potentially give us multiple stacks of bleed, even though this is a shorter duration. Then we have burst skills apply vulnerability, just like the other build. On the tankier version of this setup, when we showed it before, we still use the same exact tree line here. Now, if you swapped, say, the bow for a rifle or something like that, rifles inflict vulnerability naturally just with their auto attacks, so you wouldn't necessarily need your burst skills to apply vulnerability, and the rifle isn't going to be as good as the bow at applying AoE vulnerability since it's single target, so I wouldn't take this. And at that point, you could do, disable the foes, you could get bonus crit, but we don't need it. And then you can gain expertise and condition damage while you're wielding a sword. So if you do this, I would prefer to probably go Blade Master if I was using a rifle with this build. It's going to give you the 100% bleed duration without the bow, because we're already at like 99%, but you're going to be getting that additional 120 condition damage. So other than that, and then when you swap to the rifle, you're still going to be getting the extra condition damage, and you're going to get the extra expertise, which is going to help kind of offset the fact that you don't have your sword anymore, but keep you at 100%. And you'll get the crit damage anyway, so you're still going to be able to apply bleeds when you're using your rifle. Getting condition damage when you gain Fury. And then we got using a burst skill grants Fury. Fury gives an additional crit chance. Oh, I missed. Alright. So this is giving you an additional crit chance. So you're going to get an additional 5% there, and then you're getting bonus adrenaline, and then you're getting adrenaline from Signet of Rage, and then you'll get adrenaline from Signet of Fury if you activate it. And then when you activate Signet of Fury, you get increased crit chance and stuff for a short duration and additional ferocity, which can give you a really big, powerful burst attack if you want. And then if you want to activate Signet of Might, you get attacks are unblockable and you get a big increase in power. So you can get your Might and your power additions, and you can get, 6 to 12 seconds of unblockable. So all that's good. But now you can see our crit chance is sitting at 50 to 51% right now. If we activate something or we use a burst skill and we get our Fury, it goes up to 80 to 81%, which means that if you want to and you don't care about the condition damage, or you don't care about having as much quickness as I have on my sword, since I have 8 seconds of quickness, you can easily take off like the quickness on the sword and put the crit sigil, which can give you like 7% additional crit or whatever, and get this up to almost 90%, or pretty much do whatever you want. You can do the stacking ones that give you increased precision. It's not the biggest thing. So all that's good. Then you get Burst Mastery, which is giving your burst skills more damage, and you grant swiftness and restore a portion of adrenaline spent, which means that no matter which burst skill that you use, you're getting reduced cooldown on your burst skills. We got reduced cooldown on our bow, and we got reduced cooldown on the sword if you want. But you can use both burst skills together consistently. As well as having the discipline trait line, we get the 5 seconds recharge swap, so we get 4 seconds on swap, and we get 6 seconds on the burst skills. Then we have gang might on weapon swap, burst skills getting reduced recharge, and currently we have removing conditions on weapon swap, whereas you can use the 3% additional damage. You can use the 3% additional damage on your stuff if you want, but Brawler's Recovery just helps remove conditions we're having problems with in the storyline. And with the 4 seconds swap times, you're looking at, one each 4 seconds. You can get 5 of these in 20 seconds, which means it's removing basically the same amount of conditions that Shake It Off would give you. Then we're doing Crack Shot because this is giving us additional burning on our bow attacks. Conversely, if you want to have the most damage on both of your weapons at all times, or you want increased movement speed, you take Warrior Sprint, 25% increased movement speed. And then you have additional damage while you have Swiftness, which will be an additional 10% for the sword and for the bow. As and you basically will always have your quickness up. So that's just going to be additional 10%. That's if you want it. However, I find that Crack Shot is actually really solid just in general with this, because if you happen to go against an enemy and you're not set up to, engage close range, this gives you a lot of damage. So each of your bow shots can do like 2,000 damage or something. So you're doing like 4,000, 5,000 damage on your bow because it's shooting 2 shots at once. Each of those shots have a chance to crit, and then they have, so we're at 80% chance. So 2 shots have 80% chance to crit, and each of those crits have a 30% chance to apply a bleed stack. But you're getting also 2 stacks of burning, but since we have low cooldowns on our burst skills, you're also getting the fire field from this, which can give you 4 stacks of burning with 1 auto. So you're getting 4,000, 5,000 damage per auto with the bow, and then you're getting like 2,000, 3,000 plus damage burning every auto pretty much as well. It's just going to keep stacking. So with these two together, you can basically just keep autoing, and you're going to keep putting more and more burn stacks. You can get 10 plus burn stacks and keep them on, which is a lot of damage. If you ever did PvP with a warrior, you've noticed, like, if you ever go against like a thief or a mesmer or something with a bow, and you just put down fire fields, and it basically pressures them to move somewhere, and then you just auto attack them and don't have to use any of your skills. It's really nice, and this works the same way with creatures for the most part. Now, when you're using the physical skills, we have a physical skill on the mending, and we have a physical skill with the kick. Generally, what you want to do is with the bow, I'm finding that the bow is really good, one, because it's doing the burst skills. So you can hit multiple shots all at the same time, so it works really good with the bloodlust and everything else, because you're getting potentially 2 arrows hitting at once, 2 burning dills hitting at once, or up to 4 burning at once. So you can basically, if each stack of burning is doing like 1,000 damage, you can hit someone like essentially the same amount as 6 auto attacks with 1 auto attack with the bow. But if you say toss a fire field down, then you can do the ranged burst, and then you can hit with the 2, or you can do the ranged burst and then hit with a kick before the burst skill lands, and that'll give you the increased damage before the burst skill hits the ground. And then out of these abilities with the bow, when you're going for DPS, you can use the pin down if you want, but it's mainly just the arcing arrow, and since we have the reduced bow cooldown, it's only 8 seconds to recharge. So you're always going to have these for the most part. You can just keep using them over and over. They do 2,000 damage right now flat, pretty much just by themselves. So you can stack up the auto attacks and get more and more damage, or you can do the arcing arrow for AoE damage on targets. And with this and the might and the increased damage, I think generally they can hit like 8 to 10,000 or something AoE with these. And then you're talking about being able to, use the arcing arrow and the 2 if they're close, or you can do the arcing arrow with the kick if it's longer range, and generally all that's pretty good. We're also getting adrenaline on weapon swap, so that's another adrenaline ability. We're getting adrenaline on crits. we're getting adrenaline on swap, and we're getting adrenaline passively, as well as conserving adrenaline with the mastery skill here. And then, because this is the damage versions of the build, when we use a burst skill, we get a 21% increased damage. Then we're getting an additional crit chance and additional power. All right, so we're getting additional power, and then we are getting 5% crit chance. Then we're getting additional power with Forceful Greatsword, as well as a chance to gain Might on crit strikes. And so with the bow, we're getting an 80% chance to crit with 2 auto attacks, and then we're getting a 50% chance to get Might with each of those auto attacks, which works really well to gain Might generation. It's just something to think about when you're using these. Now, burst skills restore endurance, which means that since we get a lot of additional burst skills, we can get 15 endurance pretty consistently back and forth, and you know, that can help you a lot if you want to take the endurance route. And then peak performance, we're getting an additional 15% damage when we use a physical skill, and we have a bunch of physical skills. Now, if you wanted to do like a hammer or something as a secondary, you could take Body Blow, which would then give you that 15,000 damage over 24 seconds. It's a 24-second bleed, and you can get like 3 plus. I mean, you could get plenty of those bleeds with a hammer pretty easily with Body Blow. Talking about multiple bleeds, multiple targets. 24 seconds, you're looking at 4-second weapon swaps. You're going to be getting a burst skill off every swap pretty much, and then you have 2 additional knockarounds, so you're getting at least 3 stacks of bleed on target for 24 seconds, and you're getting 4, so you're getting 6 stacks of those. So potentially, you know, 24 stacks or something of a long duration bleed minimum, and then you have the bloodlust that would give you more, so you can still use the hammer. You can still use the rifle with this, because if you go with the rifle, you're going to be getting, and this is what I think the power of the rifle is on the warriors in the game. I don't really ever see anyone use warriors this way, but the rifle you can get. I'm just gonna go ahead and sum some of this stuff up. So the rifle and the greatsword and stuff like that. If you look at warrior abilities, a lot of their warrior abilities for their weapons, the level 2. The level 2 or the number 2 ability on your weapon skills usually is kind of a utility skill. So if you look like on the sword, you have Savage Leap, which does a good amount of damage. It's still on par with, say, 3 or something like that, but it's a gap closer. It's an escape skill. It has utility. So on the sword, it's going to be mainly your 1 and your 3, which is your damage stuff, and then your burst skill. If we look at the bow, your damage is mainly your 1 and your 3. Okay, and then you have some utility with your 4 and 5. But the Fan of Fire is a very like niche skill, because if you use this, you can see that it does 900 and something damage, which is still really good. Okay, but it's better at close range because you can hit a target with all 3 arrows at once, doing more burn, more damage. So it's kind of more of a niche ability there. And if you look at, say, the Greatsword, what you got to notice is that if you look at the abilities here, the damage is like 4,000 or something per strike. It's 3,500 or whatever per strike. And then this is like 600. Or it's 3,500 over 8 strikes. Anyway, when you look and you're doing the damage with your skills, since 100 Blades has like a root ability that you're going to be stuck in place, you could potentially miss at times, but it does less total damage than the auto attack, but it's faster attacking than the auto attack. However, the Great Sword and the rifle, if you build for quickness, the auto attack is going to deal more damage than the number 2 skill. And then if you look, the Great Sword does vulnerability on their auto attacks, and then the rifle does might generation on auto attacks. Okay, so that's what you need to think about. Like, if on this build we have Sundering Blade, which gives us vulnerability on burst, but if you're using a Great Sword, you already get vulnerability on your auto attacks. You get Fury on your burst skills, so you don't need those on the Warrior. And if you go for the rifle, it gives vulnerability on some of the skills that are on the Warrior, so you wouldn't necessarily need the vulnerability with that either. And then the rifle's unique effect that no one really takes advantage of in the game that I've seen is that it gives you might on your one auto attack, but it's slow. But if you give your rifle quickness, and all of a sudden it fires a lot faster than, say, like the 2, kind of. Not really, but kind of. But you're also gaining the might generation. So you want to get either the vulnerability on the Greatsword 1 or the might generation on the rifle 1, and then use your 2 ability for the maximum amount of damage. So quickness is good, but the rifle gives you might on auto attack, which means that you could potentially get 1 might on auto, you could get 1 might on the crit, and then you could get a might with a sigil or anything like that. So you can get like 3 might per auto, but it also pierces, which means you can get more than 3 might per auto through a group of enemies, but with quickness, you're going to be firing pretty quick. And then if you take like things like might makes right, that means a lot of endurance and also a lot of health. So if you want to do a rifle, I would suggest you focus around the might generation and the might healing, because it's going to give you the most might generation pretty much out of all the weapons. Like Great Sword, you're guaranteed the might hit on crit, but it's not really like you have to be near the target, you have to chase your target down, you have to hit. You're guaranteed 1 might on hit, but you're also guaranteed 1 might per shot with the rifle. So especially at lower levels, I think you can get away with the rifle for might generation. Some lag. Alright. But basically, this is the damage version where you have all of your healing and everything's pretty glass cannon. You get a maximum damage that you can get from all of your weapon stats, pretty basic. And then we have like alterations that you can make. So what's good about the build is that with the armor set, especially with sword and bow, you can go defense and use pretty much any trait that you want. Like the build is versatile enough to use any trait in any of the warrior lines to give you any benefit that you need. If you need extra healing, you can take Might Makes Right, and the bow and sword, you can get the Fire Field, which is going to give you might every time that you're auto attacked, as well as burn your enemies. You're able to get might on every single burst with Arcing Arrow on the bow, which gives you AoE might generation on yourself and allies, which could heal you both. And then if you have Phalanx Strength, that's additional might which would be even more than, I mean, pretty much the same or more than like for Great Justice or something like that. If you need more condition removal, you can go and get Cleansing Ire. If you need even more condition removal from that, you can go and take the Arm skill. If you want healing that's better in groups together or has more utility or anything like that, you can go the Shout Heals. Because like if you're a solo player, the Shout Heals can probably heal more than say like Phalanx Strength for you. But if you're a player in a group, you might want to take the Might Generation healing and then like the Phalanx Strength. But if you're in a group of warriors and you all take Shout Heals, then you can basically heal for more than the Might Generation would heal, and it's a lot safer. So that's kind of how it works out for the most part for me. And you'll give up some damage, but you gain more survivability. It's just trade-offs that you can get. But the reason the build, I think, is really solid and well-rounded is because you can use pretty much any one of the trait lines, any one of the effects, and do everything that you want to do without any major issues. Like this one here is you get the adrenal health, you got defense, and you got anti-condition. So you're basically going to be able to do the burst defense, so you'll be able to get 21 seconds of damage immunity if you take the endure trait line. You're going to be getting the condition removal, and you're going to be getting the adrenal health. And that's basically all the healing, and then it has more damage on here. But if you wanted extra condition removal, you could just take Brawler's Recovery. And this one has more physical damage as well. So this would be more of an adrenal health build as well as an additional, like, more AoE kind of burst build. And with this, I'd probably go like Defiant Stance. You'd probably want Endure Pain. You don't have access to Shout Heals, so you're not using any of these. You'd probably just go for Signet of Rage if you're going to use that. If you want to take Banner, then you just take in a different Signet here. And then the first skill can be pretty much anything that you want. Take Doliac, you can take hits, you could do the Signet of Might, you could do Frenzy, which is, pretty good as well. And if you don't want to take Burst Mastery, you could take Heightened Focus for trash mobs, so that would give you 7 seconds. So like with our Sword and Shield, you'll get 8 seconds of quickness from that. And then if you took Frenzy, you're looking at 16 seconds. So then you got to look at your Sword and Shield, and you'll see that this takes a 20-second cooldown. So you're looking at 16 seconds just with those two abilities. Okay. And you can tell it's not really that bad. So if you want additional damage, or if you want additional defense, you can use every single trait on the warrior, mix and match however you want, and it's going to work out for the build. So no matter what champion you go up against in the game, you're going to be able to kind of mix and match and get what you want. If you want more stability, you want more condition removal, and then so basically any mission that you're doing, you can kind of swap up your stats at every boss and change things out. And you're not going to be stuck like in a pure power build or something with a great sword, and then you can't afford to take like a certain trait because you're not going to be able to have access to it. And then here, I mean, even if you wanted to use a great sword, I can take a great sword and I can go full DPS with this great sword, and I can get what would it be? Like the greatsword's still going to apply bleeding on crit potentially, so you get additional bleed damage. Um, you'd still get vulnerability. You could also swap this out and get additional condition damage if you want. You can still use these effects. You can still use the 10% here. You could still use Warrior Sprint if you wanted to use the greatsword for additional 10% damage. You get more burst skills from the greatsword. You get reduced greatsword charge. You get more might generation with the greatsword. I mean, it's not really a whole lot. And then you can swap out all of the stats on the bottom, like this one, more defense, more healing. You're getting health and endurance when you apply might to yourself. You still have 42% crit chance here, and that's going to go up to about 70. And if you put a crit sigil on, if you want, you can go up higher, so you get like 75%, which is probably the sweet spot, at least for me, for the most part. But I mean, this would be more of the defense setup. You're getting stability, you're getting endurance regeneration, you're getting might generation, uh, you're getting additional healing, you're getting shout hills, and you're getting condition removal. So this would definitely be more of a defensive thing. This one's more of a medium-ish tier. All that stuff's pretty decent. It's all just however you want to play. It's just the world's your oyster here. I think the rifle can still do good here as well. But yeah, I just think it's like probably the most flexible. Like if I wanted to go hammer, I could go sword shield hammer, and then my hammer could still proc bleeds if I go force or body blow. If I wanted to go rifle, I could still proc bleeds with body blow. I could still proc bleeds with the crit. I could still get a bunch of might generation with the rifle if I wanted here. I think there's a lot of potential. And overall, I don't think the build's too bad, so. Might be not be the best explanation, but some of the warrior like weapons, just kind of like how I think they should work. I don't really see many people use them those ways, but I think that's what they're meant to be used for. If you just kind of look at them, especially the rifle. That's why I'm planning on making a rifle build pretty soon. Because I think the rifle is probably the highest might generation weapon you can get. Well, yeah, that's probably going to be it for now. We'll probably hop on probably later today.